So hey, what's up, guys out there? Thanks for watching this video. Some of my colleagues and I, who own martial art schools in different parts of the country, wanted to get together and have a kind of frank, honest discussion about our experience with the COVID lockdowns and where we've been, where we are now, where we're going, and kind of there's been a lot of discussion on social media and a lot of people wanting to know what's going on for other people in other locations around the country and how other people are handling reopenings and stuff like that. So we wanted to get together and just kind of have a chat, and hopefully you guys can benefit from watching this and maybe get some ideas for yourselves and your own gyms. And please feel free to share this and link it to your own pages wherever you want, and send it to your local politicians if you think they need a little prompting to understand what it is that we do. So we're going to start with just some introductions, and then I'll start with Josh. But what we're going to do is just kind of give an introduction of who we are, what kind of gym we run, what martial art, what kind of activities are at our gym, if it's non-martial art stuff too, and then our own background and when we opened our gym and where we're located. So we'll just go across and start with Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm a gym owner. I feel like that's almost like being an alcoholic. Today's week 8 of sobriety. No, I run a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu based martial arts gym that also has striking classes and fitness classes. Been in business since 2003 as a club, and since 2008 as a business.
And is this your sole business, Josh, or do you do
This is
else?
it. I was also a school teacher in D.C. and Maryland public schools for 13 and a half years, and 5 years ago I retired from that.
Cool. Derek.
Hey, Derek Darling, here in Kansas City, Kansas. So I opened my gym up about 8 years ago, and it's been in 2 or 3 different incarnations. We recently just acquired our local American Top Team affiliate. So I was basically in the midst of the first year of like combining 2 gyms into one. We predominantly do, just strictly martial arts. So we've got Muay Thai, Judo, Sambo, and MMA. And it's completely like a side gig for me. So I have a day job doing software architecture. So I usually joke it's a combination between a really expensive hobby and community service.
And you're still working from home with your software job?
Yeah. So we got closed down in Kansas. I think it was about 6 weeks ago. And basically my job never stopped. We just switched to home. But for software, that's not unusual. We've been remoting as an industry for, at least 10 years. That's been pretty regular. It's just every day now.
Cool. Scott.
Hey guys, my name is Scott Hoffman. I run Adaptive Movement Parkour and Martial Arts in New Britain, Connecticut. I opened up the parkour part of the gym way back in 2009, and then bought out my martial arts school from the previous owner in 2012 and had them as separate entities. And then with this last incarnation of the gym, we ended up putting them back together. So now we are a parkour martial arts, primarily focusing on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Jeet Kune Do facility, but we also have some stunt people that train out of here, as well as aerial silks classes and a bunch of one-off little things that we do here and there. So we've been closed down for 6 or 7 weeks, sometime in mid-March. And this is one of many things that I do. I actually am also a teacher by day. I'm a math teacher by day, so I do that during the day, and then I usually come here at nights. And then just recently started getting more seriously back into the stunt work, since the parkour gym had kind of hit kind of a plateau in terms of the amount of effort I need to put in. So it was nice that I was able to get back to something I did 10 years ago, where I really focused on the indie stunts. So I've still got an income coming in, but of course, I'm personally guaranteed on this giant building that's 13,000 square feet. So if sun doesn't happen soon, we're we're looking at some rough times.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna get into that for sure. Are you teaching? Are you teaching remotely from home, like your day job? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I teach every day. Monday, Tuesday is teaching. Wednesday is our big meeting day. Thursday, Friday, I'm teaching again. And because it's remote, it means there's kids constantly doing stuff at nights and on the weekends. And even though we don't have to, most of us are still helping out the kids at those random times because, it's a tough time for everybody.
What grade? What grades?
I'm doing math all high school. So right now, this year, I'm doing Algebra 2 and pre-calculus.
Cool math. So you understand statistics.
I do. I try.
Yeah.
I've added a time or two.
Hey, Vlad, go for it.
Vlad Kulikov, owner of my own academy, Kulikov Grappling Academy in Hewitt, New Jersey. I live in Warwick, and Hewitt is like 7 miles away. We are in Hudson Valley, about 60 miles away from Manhattan. Kind of secluded area. Not Warwick, but the town I teach. Opened up in February 1st, 2018, so a little bit over 2 years ago, and closed down indefinitely March 15th of this year.
Cool. And this is your only job or your primary job?
This is the idea in the future, but for the last 20 years, I've been combining running my own small construction business, like a little operation that I can manage without really growing it. This is the construction business has been my savior, so to speak, in this situation, because as soon as I locked down the gym, I froze on my tuition. I do not believe in Zoom classes. Me personally, I'm not about to engage in any arguments. Maybe I will change my mind. I doubt it, though. I think that the big aspect of training in martial arts, and Sambo and Jiu-Jitsu in particular, is like this mat brotherhood, like when we socialize, it's a huge network. We have a little lab work, experimentation after classes, people around, but we love each other. So without that, just being in the comfort of your living room, looking at your instructor on the computer and doing some moves with your wife, to me, it's just stupid, So I froze the tuition, and I got lucky. I have a good personal relationship with my landlord, and she forgave me tuition for last month and for May. But I cannot count on her good grace much longer, So I'm starting to sweat a little bit.
So, and we'll get into like how we've all been coping in a second. Just to go back to everybody else, just real quick, do you teach only adults or do you teach kids? What populations do you guys work with, Josh?
So yeah, I work with basically people now. My youngest is 3.5, all the way up. I also have an autism program that was just launched a couple months ago. My oldest students are well into their late 60s and early 70s. I have people who are competitive professional and amateur fighters, and that's a small amount of the business. Most of the people, they like exercising. They don't want to go to a gym and do, weight training.
Sure. Derek?
So we've got a pretty good kids program, which again, just like Josh, our youngest is about 3.5. It used to be 6 was our youngest age, but my daughter came along and wouldn't stop pestering me until I let her on the mat. So we lowered it to 3.5, and it's been that way ever since. I'd say we probably have like 40 to 45% kids, and then the rest are adults. And again, similar to Josh, we've got, international world level competitors as well as amateur fighters and professional fighters. But the majority of the people that are in there are, just normal people that, want to come in and learn something.
Cool. Scott?
So on the parkour side, our classes go down to 6 years old, and the vast majority of our classes are going to be the kids group, the kids and the teens group. We do have a fairly healthy adult program for that, and our martial arts, we have a kids and teens martial arts class, and then we have adult martial arts classes, including like Filipino martial arts and things like that. But if we counted everybody, I would say our population skews about 60% kids and teens and about 40% adults, and we do have a bunch of older adults that jump in with our classes, both the parkour and on the martial arts side as well.
Cool. Vlad?
Mostly adults. I do have a kids program I would like to grow. Youngest person is 5, the oldest is 9. Maybe in the future I would take, 3.5-year-olds, but I realistically assess my flaws and my strength. And my strength is not teaching 3.5-year-olds. It's a bit of a waste of my effort and talent if I have any. I'm trying to groom right now a couple instructors, so in the future maybe I will take on younger ones. But right now, personally, it's not my forte, so I will not. Mostly adults, and with some notable competitors in Naga circuit, some Sambo circuit, submission grappling stuff like that.
Cool. And just quickly, my gym opened, for people who don't know me, in 2003, and I used to have a day job, and then I retired that job in 2005. So I've been doing the gym as my sole career since 2005, and then mainly adults, maybe teens as young as about 14, 15, but maybe, and that depending on maturity level of the kid. But so I would say like 14 or 15 and up. Like all you guys, most of my students are recreational, probably 80% recreational, 20% competitive guys. Of those competitive guys, over the years, there's another subset that have become top-level competitors, some MMA fighters, some pro, mostly amateur. I think our gym is really good for building people's foundations. We're a small gym, so we help people build a solid foundation, and a lot of our people have moved on to bigger and stronger teams that can offer them more opportunity as a professional. But we have had some pros and stuff too, and we're in the middle of Manhattan, in Midtown, right near Times Square.
Awesome, Coconut Well.
So let's go to the topic of, and I know some of you mentioned it already, but what I'd like to look at is, and you can each kind of phrase your answer, add stuff, subtract stuff. You don't have to answer exactly, but topics. When did you close, and what were your plans in terms of maintaining communication and relevance with your students? Did you feel you had time to prepare a little bit before you closed, and or was it more reactionary? And I'll just start a little bit of myself. Like, I closed on March 16th, and which was before about 5 days before New York made us close. And I had seen writing on the wall that we were going to be told to close. So I wanted to at least have something in the bank in terms of what to offer my students. Like Vlad, I wasn't really about doing live Zoom classes, but I did want to have some kind of online content for free for the students. And so we blast recorded for a couple of days, like lots and lots of lessons to get them in the bank. And then, so I have them to edit and upload as we've been closed. So of course, we've been closed for over 2 months now. So starting to run a little dry. You got to get creative on what the video content is. But I had a little bit of prep time. My approach to what I offer the students, aside from having a free video channel, which we put up new content every Monday and Thursday, and we put up free content for everybody, not just my students, on Saturdays. And then anybody else who wants to view our channel can subscribe. So it's been actually a great source of income. I chose to do this because I wanted to help build my brand rather than just doing a Zoom class, which I felt for me was sort of just like a band-aid, but it wasn't something that would be around after we reopened or help carry into the future. So we wanted to do a subscription channel instead where non-students could subscribe and students would get it for free. And I've actually, because of that, I'm starting to make a decent monthly income off of it from some non-student subscribers, and had several people reaching out to me about joining once we do open. So so that was our approach, to try and build something that we could keep alive later after we reopen. In terms of maintaining contact with the students, I do, like, every couple of weeks, I do a state of the school kind of email to them. I've tried to be as transparent as possible. I didn't really buy into the push to have people continuing to pay tuition during this, although I'm grateful for students that did. But I kind of, and now I'm only down to a few students who do it because so many of my students have lost work and I just tell them all the time, it's like, listen, if it comes down to paying tuition for a gym that you're not attending to, or, covering your bills, you shouldn't be paying me tuition. So I'm only down to a few people paying monthly tuition at this point, but I'm thankful that they are. They are helping a little bit. So that was kind of what we do. So I've been very transparent with them, emailing them all the time, letting them know what's going on. And, like Vlad, I've had a very accommodating landlord. I know a lot of people have not, but mine was very cool with working with me on what's affordable for me to pay rent right now during this time. So that's kind of a ballpark where I started this whole thing from. Josh, what was your experience?
So I've been closed now for about 8 weeks, and I was about 24 hours ahead of the mayor very quickly closing things down. I had already started to reduce the classes and have modified sort of sign in, and I sent emails out because one of my students, actually, he thinks he got it when he was overseas and came back and was really, really, really sick for 2 weeks. And we thought, all right, maybe it's the flu. We didn't know, this was. Bianchi, when did you come back?
I came back June 9th.
Yeah. And he was messed up. But so, we do things that we always communicate with someone coming in, they're sick. We try to, do that to just, as healthy practices. And then once we got the shutdown order, I emailed all my students, said, listen, if you can continue support the gym, that's great. If you're not working, let me know. I'm going to preemptively cancel you or put your contract on hold or however, whatever payment plan that you're on. Because unfortunately, my landlord, she said, well, you can defer it for a month, but then you'll have to pay all of it back to next month. And I was like, I told her I won't magically have more money coming in. So they've been, my students have been really pretty good. I think around 75, 80% have continued to help support the school, and if not full tuition, partial tuition or whatever. I started doing some online classes, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of doing them. I'm not a fan of taking them personally. But, and I was like, I can't really teach martial arts, especially anything like grappling, where, you got to hold the person. There's so much more information you get from the tactile response to someone you can possibly communicate with words. So like a lot of drilling classes, like shrimping or doing wrestling shots and solo drills. And some kickboxing, because I think you can kind of emulate and get an idea. I would never use it for, like, say, promotional purposes, but to get people moving. And this week, unfortunately, the state of Maryland has been relatively unclear, especially because it's county by county, and PG County that I'm in is pretty open. It's pretty huge. I just started doing, like, outdoor fitness classes with 10 or less people. Unfortunately, I have a pretty big parking lot, so they can maintain their physical distancing and all that. And doing some boxing training where they're covered head to toe. And they're not really, they're punching mitts, so they can still be a pretty good distance away. And they have health protocols in place for that, where they have they make sure they're not any sort of sickness. I'm not just going by like the COVID symptoms, but anything, just as if you're not feeling good, your allergies are acting up, no, stay home. And I'm not sure how much longer I can. We're theoretically phase 1 begins June 1st or something like that, the first week of June. But after that it gets real tenuous. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm very lucky. I have a community supporting it, especially since now this is my only source of income. I've done some recording, and I've shared stuff. Like when Steve's put up stuff, I've shared that to my group, and other instructors have put up on my Cobra Hina has a capoeira background, so they have some really interesting sort of body mechanic and spatial awareness movement exercises. So I'll share those and try to provide my own content. And what other people have been doing.
Cool. Derek.
So we closed down on the 23rd. Basically, we had class, and then over that evening, the governor announced our shutdown. So that was it for us. Prior to that, we were following the CDC guidelines and limiting class sizes, and actually not just class sizes. We actually limited the entire number of people that were in the gym to whatever the numbers were. So that last, I guess it was partial week, we were only allowing 10 people in, and encouraging everybody to sign up through our website so that their space was locked in for them when they got there. And if you got there and there were 10 people, you didn't get to come in. So we've been locked down since the 24th of last month, and the governor announced that she was going to do the phased opening, and like pretty much everything else, she basically sets a deadline, and then the Thursday before the deadline happens, she pushes it back out again. So she did that with the shutdown, and then when she wanted to start the phased system, we were supposed to go into phase 2 actually Monday. Johnson County, where I live and the gym is, was on a 30-day lockdown until the 15th. The 18th was when phase 2, which was when fitness centers were allowed to reopen. And then I think it was yesterday or the day before that, the Governor Kelly went ahead and announced that we were doing phase 1.5. So that shoved everything else back. And as of now, we can open, but we can't do group classes. And there's some other documentation I have to go through. So effectively, it's like you can be open, but you can't do anything.
Right.
And our state probably isn't going to be done until the end of June. And that's if she doesn't push it back again. So effectively, it's probably not going to be this summer for Kansas. We're right on the border with Missouri, so there's a lot of back and forth between state rules on both sides. As far as
are those two states coordinating with each other? Like up here, like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, all the governors are trying to be on the same page with each other,
Missouri and Kansas have a very long history going back to the Civil War of hating each other. So they basically do everything they can to snipe at each other, including like constantly changing the tax situations. They could steal business from one side of the state to the other. So you have these big corporations that are constantly moving their headquarters like literally a mile this way, just so that they're in a different state for different tax breaks. So the rules are not very similar between them. Kansas City, Missouri is now doing a 10-10-10 plan, which is basically 10 people or 10% of your original capacity for only 10 minutes at a time. And I'm not sure when that's supposed to be over. I don't know how many places are actually doing it. Obviously, it's because I'm on the Kansas side. So,
well, how could you even do anything for just 10 minutes?
10 minutes,
I don't. Yeah, I have no clue. The way that the rules are written are extremely vague. They talk about how you can, you can have a certain amount. Now with the 1.5 limit, I'm going to have to look it up again because it just changed. But they talk about how you can have a certain number, but that doesn't count if you know the person. So like, if I was eating dinner with my brother, we can be less than 6 feet apart, or I could have 10 people from my family sitting at that table with me, and that's okay. But I can't sit next to somebody else. So I'm not sure they're really tying it together with very much science. That it seems like they're kind of, pulling it out of their ass as they go.
Did they consult with anyone, like any sort of from the business community, even at large, or from gym owners or anything?
It's not good here. I mean, there's a lot of gyms that have gone under already. There's a lot of businesses that have gone under already. I'm really lucky in that, you know, I have a good job and we've actually gotten busier because the software company I work for does nursing staffing software. So we've gotten way busier. But, you know, on the business side of it, it's really, really difficult. You know, my landlord is not working with me. So I'm paying out of pocket. We went ahead and let all of our students know that, you know, if you wanted to suspend or cancel, we do that, you know, right then. You know, if you want to hold on, we're going to try and do Zoom classes, which personally, you know, I don't know if I would do it, but, you know, again, we've got a wide cross section of people. So I figured it's better to try and provide something for them. What we found out is that the kids side of it is actually doing okay. It shrunk, but you know, we get a lot of feedback from those parents that are still doing it, where they're like, "Hey, I'm at home working, and I'm also supposed to be teaching my kid, and you know, I don't have any time for that." And having an hour where they can, you know, like do drills with, you know, somebody on Zoom, you know, is a lifesaver for me. So I think from the kid standpoint, you know, that might be a good outlet for some gyms as far as doing Zoom. But
it's kind of replacing that missing home care thing that a lot of the families are lacking right now.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's difficult for everybody. So from the kid perspective, I think that it works really well for them. But, you know, almost none of our adults are taking any Zoom classes. So, you know, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do. You know, it's my hope that we can kind of limp through this with the kids Zoom classes until it opens back up again, and then, you know, try and get it back going. But until then, it's, you know, we're operating at a deficit and there's not much I could do about that.
Hey, Scott, what's your experience to date? We'll talk about plans for the future next, but where you been like right now?
Yeah, so about a week before we were forced to close down, I brought in most of the decision makers from my gym, and we had a meeting and kind of mapped out, you know, what we thought would be the best course of action. And at that point, we all voted to keep going, but putting precautions in place, putting up all the CDC posters with all the warnings, having people wash in and wash out, doing everything all digital, so no sign-ins or anything like that on paper in front or on iPad in the front. And then, of course, very quickly after that, the state shut everything down. So we had sent out a big email before that saying, hey, this is what's happening. If bad things happen, here's some contingency plans. And then, of course, it all kind of fell by the wayside. And so now we've been closed for this entire time. I've been talking with a bunch of the other martial arts instructors and a bunch of the other parkour instructors across the country. On the jiu-jitsu side, a great initiative was started actually by a couple of the black belts in the area. We're very fortunate that the Connecticut BJJ scene is very, very tight-knit. I mean, even 8 years ago or 10 years ago when I first started, you couldn't walk into another gym without getting a side eye. But these days, I mean, I can walk into 10, 12 different gyms across the state and be welcomed with open arms. And so two of the more well-known black belts in the area started the Connecticut BJJ Coronavirus Home Training Alliance. And so each of the instructors that are in the group, and there's a ton of us, there's like 20 something or 30 something, post videos just so people can have some resource material and be still studying along the way, which has been awesome. When it first happened, I had one of my blue belts come out and don full like hazmat suit, so that way we could actually do some real jiu-jitsu. But at this point, the gimmicks are kind of over, and it's hard to get people to come on in to do it because nobody, you know, wants to be dumb or catch anything. So the videos, it looks like, have been coming in less and less frequent from people. But that was a really good resource that was put in place by the jiu-jitsu scene. In terms of the parkour scene, another gym, AMP, up in Massachusetts, which has the same name as us but is not necessarily affiliated, they've offered to work with us and do groups, Skype lessons, Zoom lessons, where we can share the workload. We haven't jumped in on those yet. We were really hoping to have some kind of actionable intel for all of our students before this. I was hoping to be able to send out a big email and say, hey, here's when we're starting, here's what's going on. But as of yet, we really don't have any super solid information, which has been incredible. So on our end, the communication's actually been kind of light, which I feel a little bad about, but I was really hoping to have something useful to give our students rather than just, we're still in a holding pattern. Like you, Stephen, my landlord has been very incredibly great with us. I mean, our rent just alone without any of the other bills is $8,500 a month. So when everything shut down, that's not something I can be paying out of pocket from my teaching salary. That's unfortunately not how much they pay teachers these days. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but so he basically said, pay us what you can when you can, and I'm hoping that that he will continue to be gracious as this goes forward. Obviously it's going to be hard to rent stuff right now, so it's in his favor to do his best to keep a paying client in the building, but you can only expect that so long before his reserves run out and he says, okay guys, time to start coughing up, or we got to take legal action. So if that does happen, that's going to be, like I said, a very rough day, because that's not, even getting a bunch of people together to throw some money in, we might be able to get that for a month, maybe two, but that's going to be about it. Like you guys, I do have about 10% of my population who are still paying. So we've canceled memberships for anybody who wants to cancel, but I have a bunch of people that message me and say, hey, keep charging me for this. I've had one of our guys who's been with us for a while say, hey, you can also charge me for a private lesson a week, or a couple private lessons a week, to throw it on the tab just to help you guys out. That's been helping us take care of some of our bills, but we also had the fun of having one of our companies that we have like a revolving credit line with go, hey, we're here to help small businesses. So in that vein, we're not giving you any more money and you owe us all of your money back. And we're just like, wait a minute, how does that help small businesses? Thanks for that, I guess. So that's
change your gym name to Shake Shack Grappling and you'll get millions. Yeah.
Honestly.
Glad. Yeah. What about you? When you closed, what you've been doing since?
Got you. Closed, like I said, on March 15th. And for about 3 weeks after that, gym was completely empty, collecting dust. So I do not live in a metropolitan area, right? I do not live like in an urban area of New Jersey or New York. We're pretty secluded. And not to downplay the seriousness of the situation, but in my immediate entourage, there is 0 cases of coronavirus. I only know people who know people who know people who got corona, So about 3 weeks after the close down, I offered some people to come to open mats. I don't charge anything, okay? And so now we train about 2 to 3 times a week, and I get 4 to 6 people maybe during that open mat. And my landlord is completely aware, and she's okay with that, because I explained to her that I want to have business after the ban is lifted. So I'm trying to maintain some kind of connectivity with my team, maintaining team spirit and team morale, so to speak, right? So that's been going on, and that's been going on, like I said, since mid-April, and we have zero sick people, thank God. And also, I have a high school, Warwick High School, about a couple of miles away from me, and I have about 6 people or whatnot that we do workout together, because language of martial arts is very physical. So we just maintain physical fitness, running track, doing sprints, pull-ups, pull-ups, kettlebells, and there's almost nobody ever there. So the social distancing thing works out. Never all 6 people work out at the same time. It's usually 2 or 3 more, but it's good to, like I said, maintain a connection with my leadership team, so to speak. And it also freed up some time for me to catch up on projects I've been wanting to do forever, right? So I wanted to shoot curriculum for Sambo Jiu-Jitsu Fusion, and now I have time to do so, thank God, right? And I'm fortunate enough to know Jason Scully from Grappler's Guide, and it looks like he's interested in shooting a Sambo curriculum, like a very extensive encyclopedia type of deal, And I'm in negotiations with him right now, and hopefully we'll come to common grounds and film that as well. And I'm not torn, because I do so many things. So, and now I have time to do that. So that's where we are. For the future, I don't know, man. I'm hoping, the governor plays the yo-yo right now, with the dates. So I have no idea when we'll be officially opened up. But I'm thinking the phase 1 would be June 1st. And I'll say, yo, guys, if you feel brave enough or whatever, I'm not going to force anybody. I'm going to ask people to exercise their own judgment, And if people want to come back and train on a regular basis versus just twice a week, I think I'll start with a small group comes June 1st.
Cool. So Derek mentioned that he knew of gyms that were already, or other businesses that were already going under, and I know a few gyms already in the city here in New York City that have closed for good. Where do you guys stand? How long can, let's just say, like, some are partially reopened, some are not open yet, like me. New York, being New York City, our phase one is probably going to be so much later than everybody else because we were like the epicenter of everything.
And so much more complex.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unlike you, Vlad, I have lots of firsthand lots of people that
I was only talking out of my personal experience.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, the regional realities are very different, which is why it's great to have everybody on here. I think New York City, New York State, some regions have started phase one yesterday. And then, de Blasio in New York said he'll look at New York City for phase one. They'll assess it on June 1st. But, like everybody's been pointing out, these dates keep just getting pushed back depending on numbers and stuff. But right now, at least New York City and, New York State were on that 14-day decline that they want. So I don't think we'll officially be able to open in any kind of real way until phase two starts. So, like, best case scenario would be phase one starts in New York June 1st, and then maybe phase two starts in the middle of June. So I don't know. That's what we're looking. But I guess the question is, how long? Like, just a realistic assessment, just brutal honesty. Like, how long can you hang on at this pace, Josh?
This pace, probably one more month before. It's like I'm very appreciative of all my students who continue to support the academy, but I don't think ethically I could do much more than where I've been that I would even feel personally comfortable with. Even though I've had people call me, make sure you're charging me this month, But at the end of the day, I also have to be able to look at myself in the mirror and feel okay with doing that, which probably, June would start really being around that point where I'd have to take a serious look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same for me. I've kind of made the decision. I was actually talking about it with my wife last night that past June, I don't want to start to continue charging monthly people. I just feel I just can't do it. I know they're getting something. I'm trying to give them something with, the videos and stuff like that. But, and also just financially, I've made an agreement with my students that the people continuing to pay tuition while we're closed, I'm going to credit that back to them later. So, let's say their tuition was $200 a month and they've been paying 3 months of $200 a month. I'm going to be deducting $50 from their tuition until I pay back that $600 once we reopen. So the longer, one, I feel unethical about it. And two, it's just pushing my own financial struggle further and further and further away from me before I can come back to some kind of baseline. The same thing with, we had a bunch of students who join annually, right? They pay annual tuition. And several of them, a bunch of them renewed their annual memberships in advance, which is very helpful, to us, because, they're kind of like in Derek's situation. They're still working. They're getting a paycheck. They're at home. Some of them, unfortunately, are working in the hospital system, so they've been getting overtime, right? So some of them were able to actually pay for another year up front. And while that's great, immediately, there was a great front-end boost of financial support from the students, in March. Then you saw an immediate drop, by 50% of income in April, and now I'm down to almost nothing in May. And all those people that renewed their memberships ahead of time, now their renewal dates are so far in the future that I'm not going to get that next boost of their income it's further away than it would have been normally. So continuing to take tuition is a twofold problem for me. One, I feel bad about it because I don't feel like they're getting their money's worth and I don't want to do it anymore. So June is going to be the end of that. And two, it's just meaning I'm going to have to deal with the financial struggle longer after we reopen. and it's not like we're going to reopen and all of a sudden everybody's going to come back, because like probably, I don't know how many of my students, but probably 50% of them lost work. A lot of them are service industries, bartenders, waiters, you know, things like that. Like they're not working. So even if we reopen, they're not going to be able to come back just yet. So there's going to be that slow upward building of students again. That's going to take quite a while. And like you were saying, Scott, like how patient is my landlord going to be once we reopen? Like he's being really cool right now. Also, I offered 50% of rent and he said, just pay what you can afford to pay. And I didn't ask for forgiveness. I was like, hey, at some point when things are better, I want to cover this. But he's been really cool about it. But how long is he going to be really cool about it? So for me, in the bank, I can float the gym, maybe paying half rent and all that kind of stuff, like maybe another 2 months. You know what I mean? And then I have to start really thinking about other stuff. And also, like Scott, there's no stunt work and no TV work happening right now either. So that side of my income is also dead. Luckily, my wife works an essential job, so she's been working this whole time a part-time job, so we have a little bit of income coming in. But so for me, the timeline is like, yeah, by the end of June, going into July, things are going to start getting really serious.
Oh, hearing.
Derek?
Man, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, that's basically what I've been struggling with back and forth for the last, month and a half. It's, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but it's always been pretty like razor thin as far as margins one way or the other for us. So, on a good month, you barely are covering all of your bills. And, again, I do it more for the love of what we do, but when it's not coming in for, a few months, you have to start looking at, how much do I want to do this? Would it be a better idea to, like close down and wait for a few months for everything to calm down and then reopen, just so that you're not forced to still, rely on the kindness and the generosity of your students to keep it going when they're not really getting anything. The one thing that's kept me kind of still in it is that, again, we are providing a service for the parents so that their kids, can have that, at least that 1 hour of activity. And, kids are different from adults. They don't need the complete tactile thing. And a lot of times, what we're teaching them is more, getting them moving around and understanding what their body is anyways, and less, the super technical aspects of jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and judo. So, I like that we're able to do that. I honestly don't know how much longer we can continue to eke that out. Personally, I think it's probably about another month. I can try and squeeze it out a little bit longer than that. But at the end of the day, if the government keeps down like this, what are you going to do? I mean, we're not, Shake Shack. We don't have the ability to get, a gazillion-dollar loan from the government. So, and I don't know about you guys, but, that PPP program was laughable for us. So I
was going to ask people to comment on that too. I didn't do the PPP thing, mainly also kind of, I mean, technically I was eligible, like I own a company, one employee, I was eligible, but I did apply. I just felt like I understand the spirit of that was so you don't fire and lay off employees. Right. And because I was also now eligible for unemployment, I figured that's really the route that I wanted to go. But I did apply for the EIDL grant, which originally they published as like a $10,000 grant, right? And then the fine print later is like, oh, it's $1,000 per employee. So
yeah,
I did finally get it. Like I got $1,000.
Oh, okay.
I know Vlad just got his yesterday. Actually, he got $1,000 from.
Damn, drinks on you guys.
Yeah. Good for you.
That's such a small portion of my rent. It's not even. It's like half of the half that I'm paying, but it does help. And finally, this week, I for the last 2 weeks, I've been getting the federal PUA unemployment, the 600 a week. And just this week, I got approved for New York State unemployment. So between the two of those, I'm going to be getting 1,000 a week unemployment, which makes it easier for me to tell my students, like, all right, I'm going to stop billing you, you know. But when we get to Scott and Vlad, maybe comment on any aid that you might have applied for, if it was useful, if it wasn't, like that kind of stuff. So where are you, Scott, with like survival going into the future? Where are you in terms of how long can you keep it going at this pace?
Well, I think using the PEP or the EIDL to frame it, it will be good. All of my bills hit when a bunch of my customers' payments were not in. And so when the $1,000 from the EIDL came in, it brought my account from negative 1,500 to negative 500, which was a fun, oh, hey, I should go fix that. So, yeah, I mean, we're really inconsistent as to when the money comes in because we're not on like a first of the month or like, 14th of the month or anything like that for our payments. They are, from when people join to when, the next month is. So it's a little harder to track and keep everything afloat. So because of that, we're like, you said razor thin. I mean, it's really, that is the key term right there. We were a gym that, all of our bills together was like 11 grand a month, and we might be making 12 grand a month most months, using the last $1,000 for little projects for upgrades and stuff like that. So really the answer for us comes down to whenever my landlord decides that he's had enough of it. At this point, I mean, I literally could not float another month when mortgage came back or when the rent came back around, just because it is so expensive. So the only thing that's keeping me afloat is the fact that my landlord wants a business in his building and is willing to invest a little bit in us. But obviously that money's going to have to come back somewhere. So starting in another 2 weeks, I mean, we're going to be up to something like, 20 grand worth of debt that we owe, including all of our bills. So, I mean, we're already in deep. And the second that my landlord decides he's done with it, that makes it a really, really a tough decision. And, obviously this place is awesome and I love it. And I really don't want to have to take apart all those wooden boxes because there's like, 1,000 of them. But, that is a very legitimate concern we've had to start dealing with is if we do need to close, what do we need to do to protect ourselves and make sure that everybody gets value and how do we pay back those people who are already paid in if we can. So yeah, it's definitely been a conversation that's been had. So.
And because your work and your unemployment was not available to you, same as Derek, correct? But Josh, did you apply for unemployment?
I have not. That's about the. Sorry, I have a couple dogs rolling around on me. I did not, and none of the martial art gyms in Maryland I know got any sort of the loans that they applied to approved.
Yeah, very, very few, to my knowledge, like even got the EIDL, or they're just starting to come in like now.
Yeah, I run on a real bare bones type of thing. I rent a light. I'm in a light industrial area in a small warehouse, so I don't have a ton of overhead. But yeah, everything kind of runs out next month. So I have to see exactly what's going to happen. I'm probably going to talk to the guy who does my taxes about maybe seeing the best way to put together the application to see if I can be eligible for something from probably not the federal, because I don't think any martial arts gym that I've talked to across the United States has got anything from the federal government, but maybe something from the state.
Right. So, Vlad, what's your timeline? How long can you keep it going at this rate?
Yeah, again, very much like Scott, I depend on my landlord's generosity, so to speak. But at this point, I feel bad. Like I think I'm lucky. I got 2 months worth of forgiveness, and the trick is we don't know when we can go officially back. I can float for another month, and I will put some money out of pocket out of my construction business. But other than month, possibly 2, it becomes unrealistic and just foolish,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. That's why.
Yeah, I know several people whose, for example, whose leases expired during this time and they chose not to renew. and or just close down preemptively, and like Derek was suggesting, maybe when this thing settles, like find a new place to reopen.
Has any of their bills, like other bills, been given any leeway in terms of like insurance or utilities? Has anybody had any leeway on any of those?
No.
Well,
Pepco, which I don't know if you guys are aware of their stellar customer service record. They are literally the worst rated company in the United States. We basically got a "fuck you, pay me" letter. Geico, of my auto insurance, actually has been better. They took $60 off my premium.
I had just renewed my liability and accident insurance, and I had just renewed all of that, my content insurance, everything for the gym, literally before this all went down. So like I'm good for like a year with that, but so I have some time before I have to see how they were going to handle it, you know. But in terms of phone, you know, Verizon is Verizon, and they I've been paying it right now. It's not a massively sized bill, and they did send us a letter like, you know, if you have hardship, you know, sign up for this and blah, blah, blah. But it hasn't come to that yet for me. But in terms of my insurance for the gym, luckily my annual premiums and stuff were just literally paid in February. So
Paid in full, I assume?
What's that?
Paid in full?
Yeah, I pay for the year up front for my liability insurance, and
Same thing here. Mine is pretty.
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
Did any of you guys, or with the, you know, they're paying for your gym insurances, did they offer any sort of extension because you're basically closed and inoperable? Yeah, I mean.
Good question. I will ask him when I'm about to renew if I can get two additional months. But
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. They haven't reached out to me with anything regarding like, you know, tacking on closed months at the end of the policy or anything like that. But I'm just glad I had a lot of the stuff paid before all this, you know.
Yeah, for us, we finance our liability insurance just because it's such a big chunk because of the parkour side of things. Aerial silk side makes it really expensive. And we pay for like 3 or 4 months up front, and then everything else is broken up into monthly payments. And then the last 3 months of the year are basically paid for. So we don't pay anything the last 3 months, which normally works out nice. And we said to our insurance company, hey, can we move those 3 months to now, since we're not using the gym? There's no liability, and they are just like the same thing. F you, pay me. Feel free to pay us a little late if you want, but after this day, it's going to be canceled, and then it'll be hard to get insurance again. So we've really gotten nothing from our insurance. And like I said, that credit line, same thing, no more money for you, and also pay us everything you owe. Utilities in Connecticut, I believe, are not shutting you off as quickly. They're giving you a little bit more leeway in terms of that. But I don't think we haven't got any like discounts or anything either. But I just think, you know, for this discussion, that's a really important thing for anybody who listens, especially anybody who has any legislative power. Like, we're not being helped out by utilities. We're not being helped out by the other companies that are surrounding us. I mean, we're still owing all this money and not having any income. So I just figured we might want to throw that into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my utilities luckily I pay my building management for that. It's included in my payment to them. So I don't have my own individual utility bill at the gym. It's part of a shared, the entire building, everybody pays a cut. So that just gets added into my monthly rent. But yeah. So what do you guys see? Do you have a specific plan, like share with anybody watching us? I know, Josh, you already started talking a little bit about you're doing the street side stuff, but with phased reopening, what kind of considerations have you been made if you get like this is assuming we're all going to follow what our local governments say, and we're not going to try and sneak stuff, which I don't know anybody who does that, but let's just say we have to formulate a plan. What is your basic plan, if you have one, for when you get the green light? Like, so one of the issues for me is like I have a kind of an in-person, distanced class structure set up with, my gym space is small, like our mat space is 20 by 30. So we're going to limit it to 3 students per class, and the mat will be divided into 10-foot sections. Each section will have its own gear, medicine balls, crash pads, resistance bands, and so everybody can work individually. Three people top. We'll have a sign up, first come, first serve. And if there seems to be log jam areas for time slots, we'll limit the number of classes people can take per week. But I'm not going to do that. And then, we're going to do. My assumption is that the original 9 to 5 day structure that I functioned under before is not existent because so many people are working at home. People are not going to be in school. College students are not in school. There's a lot more flexibility in people's lives. So our plan is once we get the green light to run 1 hour classes throughout the day, like starting at 9 a.m. till like 9 p.m. or 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. with 30 minutes in between for cleaning and stuff like that, which leads to one of the major problems, which will be in between each class. We always cleaned, of course, right, between classes, but we never offered this many classes per day. So if I ran, let's say, 8 classes a day, that's going to be 7, 8, 9 times a day I have to clean. That's 9 times a day. Yeah, that's a lot of cleaning supplies that are going to be needed, which are very hard to find right now. You know what I mean? So that's one of the issues is going to be do we have enough hand sanitizers for that much traffic through the school, assuming I start filling up 3-person classes throughout the day. The exceptions that we're making in terms of any kind of in-person physical training is if you are training with someone you live with. So if you and your roommate are coming to train together, if you and your wife or whatever, if you're trained together, I'm going to allow them to train physically together because you live together. So, but everybody else is going to be separate. No gloves and no outside gloves and masks will be allowed in the school. That's common infection control that a lot of people don't follow out there. But, if you came to the gym, because all of our students are taking public transportation. It's not like up at Vlad's where most people are driving, right? So like everybody in our gym is coming on the subways. So any gloves you wore to the gym, any disposable mask you wore to the gym, or if it's your own personal mask, you have to take it off and it's not coming into the gym, which means we're going to have separate disposal bins for those, right? And then I'm going to require training masks, at least in the beginning, for anybody taking the classes. And we're going to have everybody, if you've seen our gym, anybody who's been to our gym, like we're not going to allow any outside clothes in the gym because, again, everybody's coming on public transportation. So all the changing into your training clothes and everything will happen outside of the main gym. All the gym bags, everything will be left outside the main gym. You'll change out there. We have a big hallway and bathrooms and stuff. You'll change in there, and then you'll come into the gym in your training clothes and then reverse the process to leave. And then that's our plan once we get the green light to do it. 3-person, private lessons are private lessons. That's a different thing. I'll definitely go back to doing private lessons once we get the green light to do in-person stuff, even because I don't have to touch people. I know grappling, it's hard, but you can do a lot with solo drills and grappling dummies and throwing dummies. And a big part of coaching is being able to really just, give your observations to people. You don't have to get physical with them. So we have a plan ready to go once we get the green light to go. Aside from what you're doing now, Josh, with the outdoor stuff, what are you thinking regarding when you can bring people back into the gym? How are you going to handle it?
Yeah, so absolutely. And I'll actually, I think I sent it to you, but I'll copy and paste it into the chat section. But my I want to call it a working plan because,
of course,
new information is coming out all the time, and I'm trying to keep it relevant. But during the first part, I'm only going to be doing like fitness and kickboxing classes, and I'll probably maintain the outdoor stuff for at least 2 to 3 weeks. Once Maryland has entered in phase 2, I have a little bit more space than you functionally, so I could probably have 6 to 8 people, and they're going to only be doing. It's probably initially going to be only 4 to 6 people, but solo drills with grappling dummies at first only. There's not going to be any student-to-student interaction during the second phase. say with the kickboxing, like we're not doing any sort of clinch work. We're not doing any takedowns with the kickboxing. It's still just me mitt work or they get hit the bags. On the third phase, they're going to allow to do partner drills, and I'm going to ask them to try to find one or two people, and that's the only people that you're going to interact with. So all these are going to be shorter class. I'm doubling the number of classes I have, but cutting them down by about 30 minutes or so. They're normally an hour and a half. I'm doing probably about 45, 50 minutes to allow transition time for cleaning. And especially once it becomes partners, it's going to be kind of like old school judo, where cleaning up is going to be part of the class, where the students are going to have to clean down, disinfect any equipment they've used, clean their space that they've done. If you don't know, Simple Green is so relative, at least in Maryland, is relatively available. The light green stuff, and you can just use a couple drops of that, dilute it, and use that as a spray. So it'll kill damn near everything, and it's also non-toxic. So I have some people that are alert, they get reactions to different things. And it won't be probably until phase 4 or 5 that we're going to resume like full-on, sparring of any sort. But it's going to be a phase thing, and we have hand washing is going to be mandatory anytime you're coming in. Anytime you go into the facility itself, you're going to have to wash your hands and wipe your face down. Right, all the classes, they basically can only have their head exposed, and because for outside, obviously, no one's in bare feet. So any exposed areas are going to have to be washed every time you go to the bathroom, anytime you're coming in and out. Even though I have some competitive people, they're going to want to train more than once or twice. I'm going to be initially limiting it to only 1 or 2 training sessions a day for some people, just also to limit exposure on what goes on inside of here.
Cool.
I think I answered.
Yeah, no, that's great. Derek, any thoughts?
Questions, please.
Gosh, the problem with us is that, again, our goalposts keep getting moved. So not to mix my sports metaphors here, but we're talking about grappling, and I'm bringing goalposts into it. Initially I thought that we would just follow the guidelines of when we were going to be allowed to go back, to normal stuff. But the longer this goes on, I'm not really convinced that that's, going to be allowed. So the idea is, either we take a wait and come back when we're, legally allowed to actually re-engage in what we normally do, when it's safe to do that, or we do a phased rollout where as soon as we're allowed to reopen as a sports facility, then we start with the things that we can do. We have a lot of grappling in our gym, but we also have a lot of kickboxing and striking. So obviously we'd be doing pretty much all striking if you want to come in. We already have bags and everything that are spaced about 6 feet apart anyways. If we do that, then we're basically just reversing how we eased into the shutdown, which was by limited numbers, cleaning all the equipment and all the surfaces in between, having hand sanitizer, that whole thing. And then we'd have to rejigger our schedule a lot, because prior to the CDC, coming out with their guidelines of, 50, 30, 10, limited one space, we had, our schedule was 2 classes running at the same time. We have like a 3,000 square foot facility, and it's pretty much the whole thing is matted. So we divide the mat in half usually, and you'll either have a kids class going over here and, adults class going over here, or you'll have, grappling over here and kickboxing over there. So if we do go with the limited, plan, I guess is the way to put it, it's going to have to be something along the lines of, all right, we don't have the same schedule anymore. We are going to go back to, 10 people in the building at once, and it's one class, and it's going to go for about, 50 minutes. And then we're going to clean for, 20 minutes after that, so that we can disinfect all the surfaces. Everybody has to bring in their own, like gloves and wipe those down in between as well. And then that's the way we do it. I'm personally, I think I'm leaning a little bit towards, just waiting until we're legally and medically allowed to touch each other again. And then, like opening back up again. I think in that regards, as much as I want to keep doing this, I would rather switch to a model where we're doing more videos and instructional videos. I don't know if any of you guys know, but my coach, Steve Scott, very similar to Steve over here in that, he's got a fairly big video following. So, maybe we just switch to doing stuff like that, way more of that until, this, goes back to at least some type of normalcy. There's no way that this is the new normal for the rest of our lives. I don't think society is going to be able to function with something that could kill us if we touch each other. So, we're either all going to die out or something's going to, fix this thing. So, and I'm still not sure. And I think it's going to have way more to do with what happens in the next month, as far as the regulation and as far as the medical people telling us and the scientists telling us what's going on with this thing.
Yeah. Everybody can, I think, relate to the moving goalposts, that's just reality. So even our plan is like Josh said, it's a working plan and definitely subject to change, because every day you're getting new changes. It's easy to be negative, and not that you were just being negative. I'm just saying, like, a lot of what I see out there, it's easy to be negative and just be like, we're fucked and like blah, blah, blah. And like, but the reality is like, it's horrible. But like all illnesses that exist that don't have cures and things, like, this too will become just part of our lives and people will get back to normal. And, although, it's just shitty. We're in this phase of like, okay, well, there's this new thing, but, for any, like, regarding our plan and as it evolves and changes, I have it pinned. I have our reopening plan pinned to the top of our, school Facebook page, so people can check it. And I'm always updating it, like, when we get new information from New York regarding opening, not just New York State, New York City, because within New York State, different regions, the governor has set his thing, but then each region can open when they meet certain criteria. So New York City is different than, say, from where Vlad is. I would suspect Vlad's going to enter phase one long before I do. But so Scott, what's you got? Do you have any kind of working plan for when you can start getting folks back in there?
Yeah, so for us, the biggest problem is that it's so multifaceted because we have so many different programs running in and out of here. So what we're going to do for one program is not at all going to be the same for another. So, like, for instance, we will probably not be starting our jiu-jitsu classes back up when we first start our gym back up. We may do the kickboxing classes with this similar type of safety and health protocols that these guys were mentioning earlier, in terms of washing all the equipment at the end of class as part of like that old school, you put your time in at the dojo, sweep the mat type thing. So our jiu-jitsu classes will probably be phase 2 or phase 3. When we do have any type of martial arts class that have any contact, we'll probably have designated partners for whether it is a week, a month, whatever. That way we're not crossing and contaminating. We do a lot of like open gyms and open mats and stuff like that, where people can kind of pop in and pop out. And probably all of that will be shut down for a while. We probably will not have any big open gym or open mat sessions, just because of the considerations for health. During the winter, we do something that will probably continue, which is you have specific gym clothes or gym shoes that you bring in, especially on the parkour and free running side. So you can't have any street shoes or street clothes, kind of like you were mentioning, that people have to change into. We've only got one shower in the facility. We may make that, automatic lights are turning off. We may make that available to some of our like jujitsu students when that opens. That way they have that opportunity to do that before they leave, but that just wouldn't be sustainable for us to do for all of our clients because, I mean, that's
Right.
a massive amount of people. I mean, we have, something like 250 clients that come through here on a regular basis.
You have a hose?
What was that?
A hose?
Yes, we'll get a fire truck at the end of every class, blast everybody down. I think your description earlier about the cleaning supplies is definitely one of the concerns that I had because, I mean, you can look behind me. I mean, there's just half the stuff is blocked by the things that are right there. But, I mean, we've got so many bars and painted surfaces that, the virus will live on for a long time. It's not like it's going to be just carpet where that virus will die after a quick amount of time. We've got metal, we've got plastic, we've got coated surfaces. So we'd have to do a ton of cleaning. So we've been kind of bouncing back and forth between two different models. The first model on the parkour side would be doing private lessons only. So rather than having multiple classes going on at a time, we might have 2 or 3 private lessons going at the same time that are half-hour long, and make those private lessons, the cost for them equal to what they'd be getting for their monthly tuition. So whether it's 1 or 2 private lessons a week for like a half hour or something like that. I think the biggest problem with that model, however, is that I think it was Vlad who said earlier, I mean, it's really about the community. Our students come here because it's like their home away from home. We refer to the gym kind of like a land of misfit toys. All the people that are broken and need this to function on their daily basis, this is their catharsis. And so though that model would be the safest, I really don't know how many people would want to subscribe to it. So the other model would be doing small classes of 4 or 5 students where kind of like a Globo gym, your benefits, you are using one piece of equipment for a certain amount of time, like rotation stations, kind of like that. And then after you're done, you have to wipe down the entire station before you can move on to the next station and have everybody kind of rotate around the space like that, again, with very small numbers. On the jiu-jitsu side, I don't know what it's going to take to fully open that program again. Because, where we are, I don't want to dive into it too much because, this is where we start to get into the nitty-gritty and people will start fighting over the tiniest details. But, we don't have strong testing in place. The things we do have in place, like temperature checks and things like that, only work in a very small window when people are already sick. We don't have a vaccine. We don't have anything that's proven to cure it once you actually have it. So with having such a long latency period between when you contract it and when you actually show symptoms, there is no definite way that we can say somebody is safe to train. And so that's a very scary thing for me, both ethically and liability terms. So obviously there will have to be much stronger liability waivers and things like that. And, we are an LLC, which helps a little bit. But even on the ethical side, it really is a struggle for me to say, okay, like we can put all these things in place. And at best, there's still a 5 to 6 day window for a lot of people where we could be transmitting to large groups of people, even if we're careful. So I'm really struggling kind of personally with the decision of how we're going to put grappling back in the mix of things, because I don't want to be the person who says, okay, my business is more important.
I'm in that same boat, and
it's a way. So
some of my students have asked, for example, about, well, I tested positive for the antibody because, like in New York, you can now, it's pretty much open testing. But my thing was like, that's great to know. I tested negative for it. My wife and I got tested, but there's no science right now that says that means you're immune. Like if that comes out, if the scientific community comes out and says, hey, you tested positive, that means you're immune, I'm all for, like, you show me your test result, you guys can start grappling together. You know what I mean? But until that happens, I even sent an email out to my students to say, hey, listen, when we reopen, if you've tested positive for the antibody, let me know, give me a copy of the results so I can verify it on your record. And then as soon as we get the green light, you guys are good. We'll have a class section ready for you guys. But there's definitely like the balance of like, I want to start grappling again. I personally want to start grappling again. Like I miss this shit. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like I'm here like enjoying this existence of doing uchikomi in my dining room every day. It's like it's fun, but it gets boring real quick, and I think what will lead, after we hear from Vlad what his plan is, I want to talk about that community aspect and what makes us different from regular gyms, because I know in a lot of the jurisdictions in the different states we're in, like we are just thrown into the lump of like you guys are a gym or a fitness center or whatever, and we're very different than that, and I think we deserve different considerations. But Vlad, what do you got going on in terms of ballpark plan for when you can?
Gotcha. So the tricky thing is that this is so unprecedented. There is no safe or successful protocol to follow, right? So we're just making things up as we go, trying, having best intention in mind. So my plan is kind of like a combination of yours and Josh's. I have a fairly large mat space, a little bit short of 1,000 square feet. And my student body, unfortunately, is not a large student body. On a good day, normally I'll get maybe between 10 and 14 people, So now with the alleged 10 to 15% dropout rate, I'm sure my classes are going to be even smaller, So that's going to be much easier to manage, have like 2 people here, 2 people here, 2 people here, 6 people, let's say, on my giant mat. And that's how I'm, intending to do so. Hold on a second. She's here. And the hygiene in the gym is already impeccable. Everything is clean and everything else. I honestly do not know what else to add, possibly outside of maybe spraying some Lysol in between classes and the bed. So that's what I'm planning on doing. Like I think my classes are going to be small naturally, just by default, because my gym is not big as far as number of students, and that makes it a little bit easier.
I think in one sense, one silver lining for us is that at least let's just say good gyms, because we've all been to gyms that are dirty as fuck and don't really clean very well, and they're like breeding grounds for staff and ringworm and stuff. But let's just say from a good gym, we all like have, I would say, a really good baseline for infection control to begin with. So a good gym, people are used to staying home if they're sick, especially grappling gyms. They're used to the cleanliness, like in our gym, we already clean the mats after every class. We already do all that stuff. So it's not a big stretch to add a few more little things to do for most gyms. So I don't see that as a big problem. I see that actually as very helpful, whereas other businesses, that's a whole new thing for them. But for us, we've always been concerned about passing bugs on back and forth to each other.
So can I pose a question real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
The cleanliness, just on, I guess it would go between the insurance and the liability waiver. Has anyone got any sort of instruction? And I honestly didn't even think about it until this discussion of an addendum in sort of your liability waiver, because there's absolutely is going to be another level of liability, especially like you're in a city population, and I'm in a semi-city population of what that might include or entail. Has anyone's insurance companies given any sort of, I don't know, anything besides a payment request?
So just for me, I haven't heard anything from my insurance company. And I also know just legally those waivers only can do so much. You know what I mean? Like, from let's say the prospective student side, let's say they come to my gym and get sick, and then I say, oh, but you signed a waiver. In court, they could very easily argue, well, the fact that you gave me a waiver, you admitted that this was a possibility and blah, blah, blah. Like waivers don't always hold up in court. Not to say that you shouldn't sign them and have them signed, because I have all my students sign waivers. Knock on wood, I've never had to ever, use one. But no, to answer your question, my insurance company has not yet suggested anything like that or reached out to me, although I will be reaching out to them once we open up for sure.
Well, I can actually solve that one for you guys. This week I finally got in contact with my lawyer, with the insurance carrier in the opposite order. So the first conversation, basically the insurance said that your plan and any plan that's liability coverage for a business specifically excludes viruses as well as pandemics. So there's no like insurance coverage for this sort of thing in liability. On top of that, there isn't any sort of product that you could buy that would give you like additional coverage for liability that would apply to COVID. So basically he said, sorry, nothing I can do for you. Now, it did get a little bit better with the lawyer, though. And again, this is jurisdiction specific. So your state might be a little different from our state, but in Missouri and Kansas, due to the fact that if we explicitly put it in our liability waiver that, we are not responsible if you're here and you catch COVID. That in conjunction with the fact that there is a legal implied knowledge that you're doing something slightly dangerous by coming into the gym. It's not like where you're playing kickball or something. You're coming in to learn a martial art or an activity that is inherently dangerous. So because you already have that expectation and that acceptance that you might get hurt, and in combination with the explicit waiver saying that we're not, liable for this, he said that if you did get taken by somebody in Kansas and Missouri, that's not going to hold up.
Interesting. Just a quick question. So Maryland's very similar in that it's an assumption of risk is how they word it. So I sign a waiver. If you jump out of the window, that's your fault. If I throw you out of the window, that's my fault. But you're coming into a place where you're getting punched and kicked, and there's a certain thing. Just from the different states, I guess in Connecticut and glad with we are in New Jersey. Is there also a general assumption of risk in those states?
Yeah, absolutely. Our waiver is all about assumption of risk for sure.
Yeah, so that's the different layers. There is the same thing, assumption of risk, and then the big thing being that. If something's not explicitly covered by your insurance, but it is covered by a waiver, we've got a lot of guys in the parkour community who all share resources and lawyers and architects and stuff like that. The way it was explained to me, and I think it's a very fair way to explain is, if it's not covered by your insurance, but it is covered by your waiver, that gives you one layer of protection, but then it's on you and your lawyer to protect the language that's in your waiver. That the insurance companies will not have their high-powered lawyers there to protect you. So it does make it more costly for you if you do run into a situation, and it makes it more hairy. As we all know, legal speak is a very difficult language, and if you mistype, if you say something that's not as specific or too specific, you can get yourself in trouble. So I know a lot of the parkour communities, a lot of the parkour gym owners have been sharing their resources and saying, hey, what has your lawyer said you should put in your waiver? Hey, what kind of language have you said? And we're going to be having all of our students sign brand new waivers when they come back in. We're not going to just add a rider or anything like that. It's going to be everybody starts from scratch with the new waiver that's hopefully a little more ironclad.
Yeah. It's a good question, Josh. Maybe we should add to the waiver that we can sue them if they bring it into our gym. It's not like, it's more like you said, it's more than an assumption of risk, right? People step into a gym, they assume that I could get hurt, but this is a different level of, this is literally saying you're signing away the responsibility, somebody else's responsibility, because the only way that virus gets into the gym is somebody brings it in.
Biological terrorists.
Yeah, exactly. So, but let's lead into the how Josh, you started talking about it, the community aspect of what we do, and what describe to everybody watching, how do you see us different than just a regular gym or fitness center that we're kind of just thrown into that category by a lot of these phased reopening plans?
If we're going to talk more almost like macro level, and it's actually a good follow-up from the liability waiver discussion, is that we are, at the essence, martial arts. What's the most important piece of equipment we have? Each other, right? So it is that community of ourselves that everyone here has built at their respective businesses, as Splinter has built. This is Master Splinter. You can say hi. That we also rely almost like a little bit of self-policing within our community. I'm sure no one here has been in business for less than 8 years, 10 years. We've all had a couple assholes that have come in that you may have had to indirectly made them uncomfortable and get them out. And this is going to require, I think, going forward, being even more honest with each other. especially because we all run at, to some degree, our core of our business is grappling. We've all seen a person who's tried to cover up with their Kirka or their gear or whatever, a funny looking bump. So this is going to require, I think, even just another level of honesty and transparency within the communities that we build in order to keep us all safe. It's not saying, hey, listen, I don't want to ever see you again, you're filthy, but, you were coughing a lot. You're telling me over the weekend you ran a mild fever, maybe take another day or two off. Let's see. And I think, working to develop that within the cultures and the communities of our gyms.
Great point.
I just said a lot of words. I lost track of what I was saying for a second.
No, I mean, I think in a lot of ways we fall into a different category. Like, we should be in a similar category, even though we're a quote unquote sport. I think we're in a similar category as like a church. You know what I mean?
100%. Church of chokes.
Yeah. Derek, what are your thoughts on that?
It definitely is a family. We, like I said earlier, it's I still consider it a combination between an expensive, like hobby and community service. And I don't mean that like court obligated community service. I mean like when you go and you volunteer to better your community. I really do believe that. My coach speaks a lot about the people, and he includes himself in this list, that he's seen that judo and jiu-jitsu and sambo has saved, and in that you become a better person. It gets you away from the maybe some of the bad background that you've got around you, or a bad neighborhood, or like bad people, and it gives you positive role models, and positive ways of bettering yourself. And while you're there, you're around other people who are like-minded, that are trying to do the same with themselves, and you inevitably build each other up. I mean, you become better by being there together. And I think most of that has to do with the fact that it's inherently a paired activity. You can train by yourself sprinting. You don't need another person necessarily to sprint against. You can just keep shaving time off your lap. You can never get better without having another person there to interact with in grappling and in any of the other martial arts. It might be intrinsically aggressive and combative, but there's still camaraderie in the fallout from that. Oh, you got me on that. How did that work? How do I become better at this? Thank you so much for working with me today. I feel like I've gotten better. Many times have we all heard things like that. And, that's what makes this so hard, is that it's a combination of church and therapy and family for us. And we're now going on, 3 months having not gone to church, therapy, or seen our family. So, things like, depression and anxiety and, all that sort of stuff start, now becoming issues. And I'm sure it's an issue with the population as well, but those were our healthy outlets, and now they're not there. So that's what I worry about more, the personal and mental health side, necessarily than, am I going to be able to maintain that? If I can't maintain that, there's no reason I should have this. For me, that's an easy answer. If I can't do this to the level that I think that it should be done, then I'm not McDonald's. If I wanted to run a McDonald's, I would have opened a McDonald's. I want something that's going to be able to help the people that come through my door. The minute when I'm not doing that, I'm not going to do it anymore. So when you ask that question, my mind immediately goes more to the mental health aspect of it for my students and my training partners. That's what I'm worried about right now. They don't have that release. I don't either. But that's just the kind of person I am.
I would say it's so self-evident, like what everybody here has said. It's like there are students literally telling us, please bill us for this month. don't not, you know, people like our students are asking us to bill them for something they're not getting. I don't think that's happening at Planet Fitness. I don't see Planet Fitness people going, hey, Planet Fitness, please don't forget to bill me this month. No, their gyms are being sued for continuing to bill people. And martial art gyms, there's a whole movement by our students and by the gyms to keep billing, like wanting us to keep billing them. So that makes the difference so clear, is you know, where we stand in people's hierarchies of their lives for their mental health and camaraderie and family and community and stuff like that. Scott, what do you think?
I think that a lot of people outside of our community, I think inside of our communities, we all kind of know it happens, but people outside of our communities, I don't think they realize how much of that community service actually goes on. I think they're just like, oh, it's a bunch of people. They just want to punch each other. You know, I'm sure they like it. That's great. You know, play some video games or something that's just as violent, or, you know, go jump on something outside for my parkour people. But as I was sitting here listening to you guys, I was just thinking about like the coaches that I have here, and of the coaches and the owners here, just off the top of my head, I can think of a coach who's paying another coach's car payment bills because they can't pay it right now. I have another coach who let one of our assistant coaches live in their side room in their apartment when they were homeless for a little while. I have multiple coaches who now live together in an apartment because this is where they, you know, met, and now they're really good friends. I cannot tell you how many people that I have counseled as a de facto therapist over the years. I've had multiple students, and not to toot my own horn, but just to give people the idea, I've had multiple students tell me that I've saved their lives, and at least on one occasion, I have physically stopped a student in a situation from committing suicide. Like, these are the kind of things that we deal with on an everyday basis because, you know, the people that are emotionally and spiritually healthy, they're doing their own thing. And it's a lot of times the people that are not, you know, all there in terms of their stability that are coming into these types of organizations, and they're saying, hey, I'm missing something in my life. I need something to be passionate about. And I mean, even of the worst coaches I've met, and I've met some terrible coaches in other places, even the worst of them still are giving their shirts off their back to people just because that's what you're expected to do. Now, they may be scumbags in other ways, you know, and that's neither here nor there. But like, it's just universal across the board that everyone I know who gets into this gets into it because they want to help people. And the ways they help people are not just in terms of skills. They're not just in terms of like, oh, you get a discount at the gym. I mean, it is legitimate 100%, like the kind of thing that you pay a therapist hundreds of dollars an hour for. It's legitimately financially helping them outside of school or outside of the actual, you know, the martial arts school. So I really think that needs to be highlighted for those people that are not in this community, that this happens everywhere. Just like, I think you said it perfectly, just like in a church. I mean, you have these communities that come together and they help each other out when they're in need. And if we don't bring that into the conversation, I think people are just going to think it's a bunch of us hobbyists that just want to get together and we're bored. And that's truly not it. I mean, if it was just us being bored, we would find something else to do. But people are jonesing to get back in the gym because I don't know about you guys. I'm a better husband. I'm a better pet father. I'm a better teacher when I've had my jiu-jitsu therapy, when I've done, you know, gone out and worked hard. So if people don't quite understand that that is an important piece of our lives, I think that will be missed, and then we will kind of be dismissed again as Planet Fitness or whatever other gym you want to insert into there. You know, we keep beating up poor Planet Fitness. I mean, great rates, $10 a month. Come on, man.
I think actually on that, and something goes, I think, you know, what Steve, what you talked about is having like a product after we can start showing our perspective, you know, local officials and everything. And maybe I'm bad with a lot of social media stuff. I just kind of just throw stuff out there like a shotgun and see what hits. But you've seen a lot of like that challenge where people could walk up to a camera and they're doing to something else or whatever. But because we all have some really good communities, we can let go of all the cheesy crap and say, Sambo's helped me become better at. Jiu-Jitsu's helped me become better at. I miss my community because maybe some sort of like small, like one of those, I don't like calling them challenge videos because I think it's only challenging to me because I suck at video editing. But maybe after this, one of the projects we could all do is like maybe each of us get like 10, 15 clips from our students. I miss so-and-so because XYZ.
It's a great idea, man.
It is a great idea.
And,
And if someone better at video editing and putting that together, Steve, could do that, Steve, then that'd be fantastic, Steve.
I will advise you from afar. Sure. Vlad, your thoughts on this stuff?
Well, you know what? I'm just going to join in into beating that horse over here, you know. I wholeheartedly agree with all the sentiments expressed, you know. I serve my students. Of course, there is like a personal benefit. I enjoy training myself and growing as a martial artist, but I'm here to serve people. And it's like a serving multi-layered cake. You actually teach them martial arts, physical fitness, dietary advice, and sometimes even life advice for like younger people, you know, and it's a huge social network. Everybody's like a little family, and that is why I don't believe in Zoom class, you know. And if this is taken away from me and I cannot do it, then I don't know. We're completely different from like a muscle gym or whatnot, you know. And if it's taken away, I'll just go and wrestle on the grass like Mongols do, you know.
I mean, I think that's why we all look. Nobody gets in this business to get rich, that's for sure. So it's like we're all in it. We wouldn't stay in it if that interpersonal aspect was missing.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the biggest benefit of this. It's like Scott said. I mean, we could all tell stories all day about different students and how they've benefited in their lives and how, I mean, the gym is literally a microcosm of their world. You know, they learn how to handle stress, learn how to handle challenges, learn how to build relationships, learn how to try new things and succeed and fail. And I mean, something that you said, Scott, I don't know, it triggered a memory in me, but like I remember when we had the gym in 2008, during the crash, the real estate crash, and people were losing jobs and stuff. I mean, we had tuition-free programs for people, and one of the biggest tools for people at our gym and finding new jobs was the fact that they were part of such a diverse community. I mean, it's like somebody mentioned it earlier, like we're like this fraternity with access to lots of people with lots of different skills and lots of different talents. And I'm sure all of us could say, like, somebody came into the gym and said, hey, I need a good carpenter. Oh yeah, Joe is a carpenter. Or I need a good lawyer. Like, you know, he's a lawyer. And like, we have access to all of this stuff, and we do end up supporting each other a lot. Of course, like all gyms, there are people that come once in a while and they kind of don't really become part of that community. But for the most part, everybody in the gym that stays in the gym, they get a lot more than physical workout, you know? And I think that's not, like you said, Scott, like people outside of the community don't understand that, you know? Like when I've had people in the past say to me like, hey, come out and do whatever. I'm like, no, I got to go to the gym. And they're like, oh, come on, you could blow off the gym for one day. I'm like, yeah, it's not like the gym. I'm not blowing off a workout. You know, I'm
skipping my my bench press for today.
Yeah, no, I'm abandoning people. You know, it's like that's how it feels. And right now, it feels completely like we've all been abandoned because of this situation.
And you know, even it seems like I have one student. She maybe comes once or twice a month because her job takes her all over. She says, like, I just appreciate the fact knowing that there's this group of people that are going to look forward to seeing me.
Yeah.
Which, some people are pretty introverted, and this might, this is the main social interaction, right? And so I think being able to communicate that, of the importance of this and why what we do is so much different than just a therapist or just a gym or just whatever it is. Why it is, how these bonds are formed, right? If you have me in a submission hold, I'm trusting that when I tap, you're going to let me be safe. Or if you throw me, you're not going to try just to slam me on my head. There's this deep amount of trust that builds that all these things come out of. And so I think to find a way to communicate this to our representatives is going to be pretty key to, at least to me, because at the end of the day, I'd be thrilled just to have some advice on what they say. All right, these are going to be your best safe practices going forward. Because I'm not, an immune person. I'm not a doctor, an MD, or anything. So I'd like some advice.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we have this panel of people just here today talking is evident of what you're talking about, like the community aspects of all this, you know. Cool. I think that's a great way to wrap this up. Thank you so much, guys. Any last words from anybody to our viewers? Or what I'm going to do is in the notes for this video, I will put the contacts for all you guys, the websites and stuff. And so if people want to reach out to you, any of us individually, it'll be in the notes for this video. So to everybody who watched this, thank you for sticking it through to the end. Just down the line, any last words, Josh?
Well, to everyone watching, I mean, I hope if you are part of the martial arts community, to understand that there is hope. That I really firmly believe. I don't know where the end of the tunnel is, but it's there, and there is a light coming. And so everyone else said that you for I cannot really express in words how beneficial and how useful this was for me, because like Steve, I've known you for almost 10 years now, I think, and I've watched you other guys online, but like this has been immensely beneficial for me, sort of at least give me some perspective and to kind of steady my nerves going forward. So thank you all.
Awesome. Derek.
Just, support your local businesses. I mean, I think that the one guiding thing behind this is that those are the ones that are getting, poleaxed right now. So, as much as I want to say, hey, support the martial arts industry, and, I want everybody out there that is a member to know that, please do continue supporting us, but also support your local businesses, because, those are people that this is their livelihood. So, we aren't Global Gym. We're not, Shake Shack. We're not getting, bailouts. And, it's hard. It's hard out there for everybody. For anybody that's in a policy situation, please understand that the service that we provide is not the service that you think it is. Yes, it's a physical activity, but, it's just as much about therapy and about self-betterment for our members. And on top of that, we're not getting much help from anybody. So, if you guys think that you're handing out help to all the businesses, we ain't getting it. So right now we're surviving because our members are really cool people, and because in some instances our landlords are very cool people. But, there's only so much longer that we can hold out.
Vlad?
Well, number one, thank you for organizing, guys. It was nice to hear your perspectives and your thoughts. I appreciate all of your input and food for the thought. And my advice, just be patient and keep your chin up. We're gonna sometimes you cannot change the situation, but you can always manage your attitude towards the situation. So it's kind of up to you to be miserable or not to be miserable.
Great words. Scott?
Just for anybody watching this, my words of wisdom would be just to remember that, the information we have coming in about this thing, it changes on a daily basis. And we can't overreact or underreact. We have to kind of think about these things and really be strategic going forward, because if we're just saying, oh, this is simple, just open, or hey, this is impossible to open, I think you said it before, like all doom and gloom, there's not going to be any situations that are both effective financially and safe. And so we got to really dig into the information. I think you had posted that website earlier today that was just raw data, beautifully presented, to help people keep track of what's going on. And I think that's what people need to really dig into, because without that, we're going to make bad decisions, and then our customers, our clientele, our communities are really going to suffer because of it. So for those, whether you're gym owners or people in policy decisions, please think and make intelligent decisions based on the data, and don't jump into anything. Because when bad stuff starts to happen, just remember, we're the community leaders. We're the people that are supposed to be making the changes based on the best, most current information. So please do us all a favor and make sure you're staying in your lane for what your expertise is, and then trusting the best data you can to inform your decisions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, all of you guys for coming in this afternoon. Thanks everybody for watching, and feel free to reach out to these guys individually. All their info will be on the bottom. And big open mat when we can, man.
Yes.
For sure. All right, take care, guys.
Have a great day.
See ya.
See ya.